Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast.
We cry so much faster now.
Sort of for whatever reason, so.
Oh, yeah. No, it was all right. Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, definitely
I've
got
had
worse.
worse. Yeah, I mean, I've told the story before with
Steve Albini.
yeah.
Which is, that's hilarious, right? Like Mr. like Perfect Sound Forever, like known for recording
Right.
engineer and just, hey, why does all your connections sound like trash right now?
Right.
It sounded awful. You had him on too, didn't you?
I've had Steve on like 4 times. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's it's fine, like whatever. It's, it sounds like a dude on a phone, but yeah, it was
Right.
You would
Yeah.
think, yeah. I mean, that was like almost a relief for me, though.
yeah.
Like when it got to editing, like, oh, well, I don't have to worry about this because there's no fixing it.
Right.
There's a thing he does. He's done with other shows that he'll record audio on his side as well, and then like send the files over. But I don't know.
Yeah.
He might have been doing it at that point. He might have been doing it from home or something. Like I don't know. I wouldn't want to presume.
He was at the studio, but the problem was he was using like the PC that was up front in the main office, and it had a click in the fan, like a piece of shit in the back of the PC or whatever. So it's like the whole fucking time. And he's just like, yeah, let's roll with it. Who gives a shit? And I'm like, well, we kind of do, but
Well,
it's Steve Albini. So what do you say?
yeah.
I've often compared it to, I keep telling a joke that it's the Zapruder film of our podcast, because it's like it's so terrible and you can't really get anything out of it, but it's so historically significant that we had to keep it.
Yeah. Everyone wants to hear it. Yeah, sure, makes sense. Anyway, that's a bunch about that guy.
Our friend Rob has a pretty good story. He worked for him
Yeah, Rob Bosnick.
for quite a while, helped build the studio and all the stuff, with the whole digging out the basement shit and all that. And like one of the first big things that they were going to do was they brought in Smashing Pumpkins to record, or maybe it was just Billy Corgan. I can't remember.
I think Billy was cutting there. Yeah, he was cutting his tracks. He was cutting his vocals.
It was like one of the first things after they got everything built, and there was like this just minor hum that just permeated everything, and they couldn't track it down. And finally, Billy was like, "Fuck this! I can't do this. I can't work with this," and just bailed on it. And Rob was just like devastated. And it turns out it was coming from a building like around the corner that had like a faulty fax machine. There was,
of course that's what.
but it took them forever to figure that out.
Oh yeah. I'm surprised they even did.
Yeah, I think when you're building a studio, I mean, anything you have to do with sound, the worst possible thing in the world is where's that hum coming from?
Right.
That's like the worst thing in the world. And it's always something like, oh, the ground lift is, touching the thing. Like what? It's some inane thing that has nothing to do with anything. We're like,
oh, it's awful. It's awful trying to track that shit down.
Yeah,
that's why. I mean, I kind of want a DAWs. I'd love to have a digital audio workshop, but it's like because it just seems like the thing to do. But goddamn, in some ways, these plug and play USB mics, it's just like, sounds fine. You plug it in, you go. There's only one route that it could be.
Yeah, it's just the one thing. Yeah, totally.
It's just the one thing, and it's either that or your controls, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I've got such a specific setup for my demo stuff that I track that into the iPad, so it's like just so far removed from anything other than basically doing something like this because I don't use. I don't remember we're recording when you said it or not, but my Protonic Reversal setup is so specific to what I do, and basically, I feel like we've talked about this before, but that's fine. That's fine. Well, I developed all these hardware solutions for things before there were all these tools. Like you got to remember, like that show's been around like almost 8 years now, right?
Yeah.
So I had to like devise solutions for problems I didn't know existed yet, let alone having like someone that has like a software as a service for it now.
Right.
I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but it's how I do it. It does the thing it needs to do. It does. And then like I managed to, let's make it more complicated by introducing the video.
Yeah.
Right, which is then it's like, oh god, and now I need to make it look cool too, and like, oh Christ, and it's just a nightmare. So when I'm on for other things, I usually will just go upstairs to the office, like I'm at right now, which is this is where I usually write all the demos, and then like just plug into the Mac with like a microphone in and headphones out, and away you go.
There you go.
You know, and that's I'm on this movie show now, and that's my setup for that too. And that's great because that way I can just never touch the Protonic setup. Just like one time it gets touched is when it's used,
right?
And all the settings are the same. I don't have to fuck around with anything. Like it's ready to go. It's ready to do my show, so I can just concentrate on doing the show well rather than where's the hum coming from.
That's good,
right?
I think if I were to modernize the Protonic setup, I could certainly at this point do everything I need to do just on the one computer, but. Whatever, I got all this stuff for it, and you know, it's sort of like it's part of it is the ritual, like the going down, to the place that I do the thing.
Yeah, for me, like I get attached to things too, like in a weird way. Like I've got an old ass surround sound system in my house that I will not get rid of. It sounds okay still, right? There are nicer ones now.
Sure,
you know, it still says tape.
Well, yeah, right, exactly. Are you really going to be putting a tape deck into that? Probably not.
I actually, I went ahead and dug it out. Yeah. They're coming back.
Knowing Matt.
But it is funny. I used to even have, I used to have an even more overbuilt mixer, like a 16-channel mixer, like when you could use it as a club. And that was handy for like when I had people in person. But then when the COVID hit, I'm like, okay, let's be realistic. I'm not having anybody on in person anytime soon. I can get some money for this. So
that was like my big Christmas gift right before COVID hit was like a mixer that I'm like, oh man, we can take this on the road. I can set up.
Yeah. Just in time.
Nope. It's gathering dust.
Just in time.
Did the same thing. Yeah.
But it is funny that like,
shit. I just want to introduce you, Matt.
Sure.
Yeah. People might want to know we're talking to.
Yeah.
Good evening, dandies. Welcome to Undetermined, the podcast. Special guest tonight, the hardest working man in show business since James Brown died. Mr. Conan Neutron joins us on Undetermined, the podcast. We are podcasting from Ice Station Zebra in the freezing, blasted hearth of the Midwest.
All of us.
Welcome, Conan.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back. Do you know the Silkworm song? Ice Station Zebra.
Yes. Yeah, I was thinking about the movie, but yeah, I know that song.
Yeah. Well, they were. So was Andy. So was Andy when he wrote the song. But I was thinking that as well. Yeah, that's it's balmy now. It's like 20 degrees. It was like 1 degree in Milwaukee, like last weekend. So I was like, yeah, the heat wave. Right.
Nice.
Right.
Thanks for having me on. This it's been a bit. I think last time I talked to you guys was right after Dark Passengers came out, right? So that was like end of 2020. So it's been like. And over a year.
It's been over a year. And I didn't even realize because when I started putting together like our best of, I was like, oh, where's the Conan? And then
right.
It's like, oh, fuck.
Seriously. And I was like, holy shit. But I think maybe we communicate pretty regularly. So
I mean, we at this point, like it's, you guys are big supporters of the band, and I dare say we're like podcast siblings, right? So like,
for sure.
There's a mutual exchange, mutual admiration society going on. Yeah,
that's touching. I appreciate that.
It's not that big of a deal. It's not like that much happened in the last year anyway.
No.
It's wild. Like, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it feels like it's been 20 years and 2 weeks both at the same time. Like it's crazy.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
I just tried to rewatch the Lighthouse, with Willem Dafoe, and it was just Jesus Christ, it was too depressing. It touched too close to home. That's kind of what I feel like. Like I'm on an island,
Yeah.
No.
And,
every day's the same.
Right. Like the podcast is like a ham radio. And I'm just like, okay, reporting in. What's going on where you are?
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very real.
I'm ready to get back out.
Well, that's our show, folks.
Yeah.
Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, it's been a year.
No, but I mean, it's like we're not telling anybody anything they don't already know, right? But I mean, it is just that. And I think we I don't know if we talked about this before, but it is weird that it's a unifying experience in the way that everybody in some way has had their life fundamentally changed, right? Like, even if it's not going to affect everyone the same way. Like, I don't know about you guys, but like, I think the vast majority of folks I talk to for the show are like, oh, well, I'm kind of a homebody or a loner. I don't really go out that much anyway. So things didn't change that much. Ha ha ha. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But then some people are like, my entire world has turned upside down. Yeah, that's more like me. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you can use it to be more prolific. You can use it to write. You can use it to, do all sorts of things.
Yeah. So that's certainly, it took for me kind of getting through that initial wave of, when the COVID hit, we had to cancel all our tour. It's like every other band on the face of the planet. But then also I got laid off from my day job too. So it's basically, in quarantine also. So just sitting there like staring at the walls being like, well, this is interesting.
Yeah. I'm bet you that's not the word you were thinking, though.
No, it was not. But then, like, what I did, because I couldn't. And that's the other thing, is I just couldn't write songs. I think it was just too mad. I was too mad and too like despondent, whatever. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm just done with that. Maybe that's a thing I can't do anymore.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's when I just laid into doing Protonic, like basically 5 days a week for a while. And, for as long as that show's been around, like there's something about the type of episodes or the the mass quantity of them or whatever that, people really responded to it. And all those people that are very quick to tell you they don't have time for podcasts. It's like, we got time now, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Yeah.
And so it grew considerably, and I put up a Patreon, and like that paid power bills and things like that for a while. And
well, you're welcome for the you're welcome for the $5 a month from me.
Yeah. It's appreciated. I mean,
I kick it.
It's real, like that.
Yeah.
And I've always been someone that I have a day job to go with the making records and touring, but I make sure that the day job fits around the art and not the other way around.
Right.
But there's been very little fit around in the past year and a half, 2 years. Because I think we played a total of like maybe 5 shows. Right when it's sort of like, Delta's going away. Hey, things are going to get better. And so so we took like a few shows that were, okay, this is the state fair. It's outside. Like whatever, like basically individual justifications for each one of these, right? The reasons to do it.
Right.
And we did those, and I was like, cool. I don't feel comfortable booking anything else right now. I certainly do not feel comfortable doing a tour because I don't think my heart could stand booking an entire tour and then having to cancel it again.
Right.
Because that's another thing too. I don't cancel shit. Like,
yeah.
I think I've canceled 2 shows ever in 22 years of touring.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And one of them was because someone was hit by a car. I was like, well, yeah, that's not happening.
How you feeling?
Come on,
buddy?
Man.
Yeah. Keep power through. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's, that's not the least of it. It's been kind of a crazy, heavy year. I lost my mom in May. Chris.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Thanks.
Yeah, sorry to hear that.
Chris, who was like as close to, probably closer than my actual brother, my musical brother from Replicator, Mount Vicious, like 10 years. So he passed away in August, 2 days before turning 45.
Jesus.
And he's a dad.
Yeah.
So that's great.
God. That's hard. That's so hard.
Yeah. And like Vern, Elcan, I think that had happened last time we talked, but like it's just been, there hasn't been basically a 6-month period where there hasn't been somebody dying.
That sucks.
Which is not unique to me. Don't get me, I don't get it twisted, right?
Right. I mean, I've been through the similar things. I mean, you lost a great friend to suicide years ago, lost my brother, lost my father, lost my, uncle, lost it. All these people just in a handful of years. It's you start to feel like you're on an island.
Yeah, even more so, which everybody feels like they're on an island now, as we established with the Lighthouse reference, right? But it's even more so when like, and especially like, I've had peers pass away, like musical peers, especially, usually drugs or drug related, but to have it be someone that I basically spent my entire 20s with, you know,
Right.
like
Yeah.
traveling the country, like that hits way different. And I don't know, man, it's rough.
They're the family you choose, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I said at my buddy Mike's funeral. You know, it's like family, and then your friends, but your friends are the family that you get to pick.
Right.
And you know, you can drop them if they're an asshole, but when they stick around for a long time, that's hard.
It is.
Well,
You know?
yeah, and what's crazy, like for a few years, Chris and I were not great. Like we did not leave things on the best of terms. But then, like we reconcile. I even had him play in a live version of the Secret Friends for a couple tours, and he's in a documentary even of it, like a little mini doc of it. But like, you know, I'm glad we reconciled.
That helped.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, it sort of. You know, some people don't get that chance. Some people that never happens. So,
Right.
it's important to do that, I think.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe even if it doesn't seem important at the time, like it's something I kind of back of mind that I don't want to leave any bad blood, except for the few people
Yeah.
deserve all the bad blood in the world and who should literally die. Other than that,
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean,
So many of us are going through that. Yeah.
yeah.
and there's a bellwether, right? I mean, certain people are, you know, and I have family who are, you know, and some friends who've just been bad people. And that's how you know there's good people, because it's the opposite of what they do.
Study and contrast. Yeah, no, for sure.
Right.
So it's,
We
but it's
we need
crazy.
them.
Yeah. You need the, you need both sides. But, you know, we tracked a bunch of stuff in April, and I mostly finished it off in September. And so that was probably the first time that I was like, wow, this kind of feels like you're blowing the dust off of the machine, and like the wheels are starting to grind again in some way. Even just doing it, just the act of doing it, was sort of like, oh yeah, this is that's right. I had a limb amputated. I kind of forgot about that.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally forgot that I had my arm chopped off.
And it's hard to predict when it's going to hit you. It just hits you.
Sure.
Mhm.
Sure.
Yeah, no, totally. And that's real. And so for me, I'm someone that this is the most idle I've ever been, which is not to say that I'm idle, but this is the most idle I've ever been. Like I'm
Right.
I'm like a shark. I'm always moving.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're a hardworking guy.
And I think there was a small amount of time where it's like, okay, well, use that time to be introspective. Like, hey, I did that and it was great, but now I'm ready to do other stuff and I still can't do it. And that's because, you know, this guy in the tank top and sandals at the Applebee's doesn't want to wear a mask.
No
And that's-
shit, man.
Right. Yeah.
And you are
that's
fucking my world up right now when I'm at
Right.
the apex of my creativity.
Yeah.
Therein lies the rub, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Jesus
And
Christ.
all empathy I had for folks like that, the COVIDiots, as Brian Walsby termed it, is just I have none, 0%.
No.
Oh yeah, we talked about that. I think in the last episode with Isaiah Radke, I said, like, you know, there was a CNN article or something. It was like people are losing patience with people who haven't vaccinated. It's like losing.
It's
Yeah.
lost.
It's
that
fucking
shit
lost.
down the
That
sales.
shit-
no.
oh yeah, that went down the sewer pipe a fucking 6 months ago. I don't know what
Right.
yeah. Breaking news. No, that happened a long fucking time ago.
Well, and you like to think natural selection would just take its toll.
But the thing is, they take other people with them.
They take other people with it. Yeah, so it's like it's kind of
Right.
you can't even take comfort in that. Where it's like, oh well, these idiots, you know, Darwin's Darwinism will take effect. Like, no, they are going to just affect all the people that did everything right and, you know, actually cared about other people, which is just perfect. That's just perfect for
Oh,
our
yeah.
society. That's where.
Yeah.
Anyway, this is a cheery topic.
It
It
is,
is.
but
It's
it's
so-
so heavy on my mind, and I'm guessing I'm not alone.
Yeah.
And like, especially, you know, with what I do.
Sure, of course, you're going to see it all the time.
Yeah, it's
Matt is for those who don't know, Matt is a circus clown, and he is and having to blow into
oh
balloons.
my god, it's so hard to get a laugh
It
anymore.
is. It's just no.
No.
Go ahead.
So I work at the suicide prevention hotline,
Yes, thank you for that. I didn't mean to make light of it.
No. I may edit this out. I kind of get weird about it, but I'll tell you guys this story, and I may edit it out. But this just like really fucked me up this week. Was a call that I took. It was a guy. He's just in tears, and he was going to have to sign the DNR for his girlfriend in the morning.
Motherfucker! Jesus! Wow!
Yeah, and I was just like, whoa. So, yeah, it fucked me up.
And it's interesting. I mean, as Conan mentioned, how it affects everybody, and not to take this into like a transverse or esoteric realm, but it's like you look at the way that politics, you look at the way that just sociological situations affect things like music. They affect things like art. They affect things. I wonder, I mean, as we've had different eras of music and different movements in music, I wonder if there's going to be like a COVID rock kind of.
I mean, I think we're already seeing it a little bit just with like everybody's
I think we are.
Solo record coming out. But, but the problem is like I don't think
it'll be a
gonna
genre
be rock. It's going to be like a certain type of sound probably that's it's interesting that technology has developed that you can basically do a band in the box much easier than you ever could.
Oh yeah.
Any other time in history, right? So and you've got people with nothing to do and no ability to move forward collaboratively. Why wouldn't they? But, and what's interesting is like, in a way that'd be central casting for how we work, other than the fact that no, it's a rock band and it's people in a room. So, we have to like ultimately, I demo everything out. And if you listen to the demos, yes, they're good. That is the song. I think people might be shocked by how much is there just in the demos, but, at some point we have to get together and record it. So, we did that in April, and that was for all the stuff coming up. So it's not just Dangerous Nomenclature, which is the new one, but there's a split LP with another band called Lung. It's like a split LP, so it's going to be like 6 songs on both sides. There's going to be a really cool concept EP that I can't speak too much about yet. I'm still nailing details down. And then there's 3 songs for the next full length, which we're going to record the next 7 or 8 when we can, but like sometime in the spring, either between Melvin's tours or potentially afterwards, because they're going out with Ministry, and then they're going to do another.
Yeah, I'm going to try to catch that.
Yeah, I think COC is playing too. I think if I remember correctly.
Oh, nice.
Oh god.
So that COC Melvin's in Ministry, so that should be interesting. But they're going to be, and they've been like grounded for like everyone else for a while, and. So it's they're going to be out there and do it, but we're either going to track it. It's honestly, it's probably going to be after all that. So, but that's fine because with any luck, there's going to be 3 releases this year for Conan Neutron: The Secret Friends. I can guarantee you there's going to be 2. The third one may or may not make it depending on timing, because if you're lucky, it's like a 9-month turnaround for vinyl. If you're lucky,
yeah.
Ooh, I'm so fucking over Christmas. This is I about lost my shit at Target, seeing like all the fucking Adele vinyls out.
Right?
And I'm like, you got enough. You've got enough.
Yeah.
Every time you see a Friends record release that is postponed, just think about Adele.
Exactly, and that's what
the
I
reason
do.
why. Yeah,
she has an alien nest of like pucks, of those record pucks just being laid in her.
Yep.
Yeah. But you can't, you can't think too hard about that kind of thing.
No.
Like all I've ever. The thing I find myself, if not happiest, most creatively fulfilled, is when I was constantly working on the next thing. So I anticipated that it might be something like this, which is why rather than just like make a record, like I was like, we're going to make like 4. We're going to make like 4 releases. And each one of them had like a special kind of like thing to them.
The Peter Jackson method, right?
Exactly. Just to make, you got the crew there now. Let's just make it all.
Shit, let's make 3 movies.
And the extreme and sort of like thing I vow never to do again is do the Protons and Electrons way and record like 17 songs all in one go. But this was sort of like the compromise method, which is that I kind of had it gamed out which ones I thought would be easier gets than others, and then also which of the releases were, because they each have a kind of a conceit to them. Like the Dangerous Nomenclature one is a split with this band Erratic Retaliator Strategy, who I love. They're the only band I think of that can alternately sound like Tom Waits and Men's Recovery Project. You know,
I'm glad you brought up Tom Waits. You introduced me to these cats this week, and I had that same
totally.
From the vocals. I had the same. Yeah, I got that vibe, and it's just so good. And I'm not hearing anything that I would label as COVID-y from your new tracks either. We've been talking about this week, but man, just pure rock and roll. It was so fun.
Yeah.
It was so refreshing to hear those tracks from you. And it's like,
I'm glad you say that, because that's definitely what it is. And sometimes people don't, if you don't have an appendation, then people don't know what to do with it. Like if it isn't, such and such rock, or, whatever.
Right. It's good. Yeah.
And ultimately, I think this is just a slightly weird rock band that's informed by a bunch of weirder stuff. But it's if people say we're a rock band, that's true. That's exactly what it is. It's a rock band. Right. But I'm glad that comes through, and also because I love all the Dark Passenger stuff, but so much of it was sort of explorative and stretched out and purposefully so, right? That it was sort of like, okay, and that fit that material, but I just like how that was almost a reaction of the Protons and Electrons stuff, where it was like short and snappy, that I think it was what naturally gravitated towards is just ripping. Right. For these ones, right? Yeah. To sort of like, and let's get some, cool guitars doing cool guitar stuff, and I'm really excited about it. So the so this one, there's 3 songs by Conan Neutron, The Secret Friends, and 3 by Erratic Retaliator Strategy. Uh-huh. And it's called Dangerous Nomenclature because we came up with the names first.
Nice.
Of the songs.
Okay.
Because there's 3 songs by the same name. There's The Commuter, there's Misplaced Optimism of the Doomed, and Competitive Grief. And both bands wrote songs to those titles without consulting with anybody on either side.
I like that.
Without coordinating any side, just because, first of all, I knew that I love Erratic Retaliator. Like they're great. Like it's just 2 guys. They're super creative. Some of it sounds like Warlock Pincers, I mean, like the one guy speed raps through stuff sometimes. Like they're just you never know what to expect. They're delightful. But I knew that no matter what, right? Chicago band,
yeah.
No matter what, it wasn't going to sound like. They weren't going to sound like each other, no matter what.
Right.
I was like, hey, let's just keep the curtain down as long as possible until we get to like the mastering phase, just so we can kind of see, what. And it was awesome because it was sort of like, yep, that's different, all right.
No, that's cool. I really like that idea. It's a little bit like we'd talk to Dave Hingerty, a drummer out of Ireland.
Mm-hmm.
Big fan of, and he has this project called Side 4 Collective. I don't know if you caught any of that or not.
I remember. Yeah, I remember when you had him on. Yeah, I this sounds familiar.
So what he does, but he's a drummer, so he'll come up with like just a riff, and then he'll just put it out there, and any artist can make whatever song they want to with that as the starting point.
On the thing. That's right. I remember this now. Yeah. So. I think I'm too much of a control enthusiast to ever go that route, but it's the same principle. I guess I could tell
it's the same. You're just doing it with words.
Yeah. Well, I guess I could tell you guys because I mean, it's just us guys, right? But like whatever. It's like a state secret or anything. But one of the other releases, there's a song called Fight Math that's on the first record that we tracked a different version. So on the first record, it's Eugene from Oxbow that's singing on it, which is great. Eugene's awesome. He's an iconic dude, right? But then I made a version for the Caterwaul Society comp, which was a benefit for our label guy, Rainer Franz, who runs Learning Records. He had a heart stent put in, so I made this benefit comp, and we have a new version that's like me singing, because the idea was like live when we play that, it's either Eugene that sings it, me that sings it, or we have a cool lady singer do it. Like we've had tons of people like sing it, and it's sort of the there are lyrics to it, but it's like open to interpretation to a certain degree. And I've always liked what like the craziness that has brought forth. So this is a long way of saying that there's going to be a Fight Math EP that is literally a new version of Fight Math that no one has heard, that we tracked and track not as like a song that we played for the first time together like that morning, but like as one that we have toured on for whatever 5 years or something along those lines. It's like a live favorite that we're gonna have different singers sing on. So it's gonna be the same song, but it's gonna be, and I can't say who. I won't say who's on it. I will say that some of the names might surprise people, but they're very different type of vocalists.
Okay.
And I love the idea of it being the same song, right? It's the same song, but it's completely different based on like who's singing it. Because like I've been telling people like, hey, go nuts, go like as crazy as you want to with it, like do crazy overdubs, whatever. And that's the most exciting to a certain degree because like I have no idea what the end product's going to sound like, but I bet it's going to be rad. So that's one of the other releases, and that's one that like I was like, to me that's like a COVID project.
Yeah.
Right. Like we're sort of like, hey, everyone that's home, like it's way easier to track vocals at home than like track a band.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've been excited because some people I've asked them, I've been like, oh man, I feel weird about asking this. And they've been like, hell yeah. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Can't wait to hear what you do. That's great.
I watched today, which I haven't seen. I was just kind of checking up on your socials and your internets stuff, but it's like I watched that documentary of your 2018 tour, that mini doc, like 15 minutes.
Oh, which has Chris. Yeah.
Yeah.
Has,
and I caught the statement "misplaced optimism of the doom."
As you guys are like, there. That's right. Yeah, because that's something
as you're rolling through North Dakota, I think, and you're looking at the snowy, like blasted landscape, and like,
Chris does a reading of it in Herzog voice. It's like he's in
he does like a
snowy wasteland.
Filming documentaries are going down this like blasted part of the road, just snow for miles and nothing, and filthy weather. The misplaced optimism of the doomed. And it's like,
Credit where credit's due. I did feed him that phrase, but that you have to understand that bit went on for like probably 10 minutes. Which is to say that we're driving through like North Dakota or whatever, so it's like, I was hilarious. We were laughing the whole time. I was like, we need to film some of that. And I fed him that phrase because that's something that I've had rattling around in my head for quite some time. Because it's sort of like my life ethos. It's like I have no reason to be optimistic about anything, but I am. So that's how I choose to live my life.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's Chris, man. R.I.P. He was classic drummer fashion. If he wasn't sleeping, he was cracking wise.
Right.
That's funny. It fits with every drummer I've known too.
Yep,
it's the same way.
Yep.
It's pretty. It's a common trope, and it's that way for a reason. So.
Right.
But yeah, well, and that's one of the reasons why when we pick these ones, I actually have this like long text file of just. Oh, that would be a good song title, and I'll put it down, and then I usually don't think too much about it until it's time to, name a song, because I always name songs early on, because I just won't abide like new song 4. No, that doesn't work in this band's army. So when we did the thing with Erratic Retaliator, I was like, hey, here are the ones that I think would be good for this, and I think I picked like 5, and like those guys were like, these 3 are our favorites. I'm like, great, let's do that. But I've had that one kicking around. I might have gotten it from like a comic book or something, like John Constantine, if I remember correctly. I can't remember because it's been so long, right? So some of them just have been, in this lonely little text file waiting to be used. I'm waiting in this world to be born.
Yes.
Yeah. I have a bunch of those. I have a bunch of little journals and those little like mead flip books.
Oh yeah.
I'm just like random, like, band names, song names, shit I'll never write, shit I'll never do. Just like, oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I will say that I use a lot of them. Am I ever going to use all of them? Well, geez, I don't know what would happen if I did. But like, I do go back and use a lot of them. And some of them like, oh, that's really good. But like at that time, like there was some reason why like I didn't think that would work, or I didn't think like, there's some reason why I was like, no, that doesn't fit that, or whatever.
It's not the right time for it. Yeah.
But it may be the right time later, and that's something I've learned from other people of just like, it's okay to hold on to stuff
Exactly.
and come back to it, because there may be something that happens where you're always going to be a different person when you revisit it. That maybe the person that you revisit it as will be able to use it and be able to do something really, really cool with it. And so that's a mindset, and that's a mindset I've adopted with my creativity, and it's worked out pretty well. I mean, I think.
Well, I mean, when you collaborate with so many people and work with so many people as you do, and as you have, I mean, it's good to have a tool belt, full of things like that.
I mean, I've wanted to have a song called "The Commuter" for years, because for years and years, I did commute. I commuted in the Bay Area from Oakland to Santa Clara, like 4 days out of the week, which is like an hour and 45 minutes one way.
That's
Holy
tough.
shit.
And
that's
you
like a
get a lot of
Stephen
time
King
to listen
novel.
to. I know, right? It's like the long ride instead of the long walk. You get to listen. Like, I listen to a lot of music. I'd listen to a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. But I just so many times I would just sitting there being like, "Why am I doing this, man? Like, this is crazy." And all these other people are doing it too, and we're all doing this crazy, like having these like shocking moments of self-awareness. And so that's what birthed that song. And as I was like, well, that's such a good concept. I don't want to use that one until I have something that fucking rips. Like, it's got to be
Right. Yeah.
Right.
And man, your guitar tone on that fucking song is smoking.
Oh,
I just
thanks,
gotta
man.
say,
Thanks.
I think I mentioned that too to you. I was just like, yeah, that sounds so good.
That was the first one. That was the first one that was that I wrote coming back to writing songs again. And like, I was like, I think I'm inspired to write something. And I sat down and demoed it out within the hour. I'm like, oh, guess so. Okay. That's like, I didn't have an idea of what I was going to do. It just worked out that way. It's pretty much all there except for what I call like the James Bond part, where there's a little kind of harmony thing where it sounds like a James Bond movie theme.
Right. Kind of operatic.
Yeah.
Was it kind of a relief to get something out? Just like, I can still do it.
No, it like knocked down a gigantic mental block for me, really. And
Good.
And it was,
Yeah.
and the fact that I was like, oh, this shreds. And we actually, we played, that's the only one of these that we've played, like the few shows, the 6 or so shows that we did. We played that like at every one, and everyone's like, wow, that sounds great. What is that? Oh, it's brand new. It's not recorded yet, or it's not released yet.
Right.
Like, oh, that's awesome. And I think the other time we really have done that with Impossible Task off of Dark Passengers. And that was for the same reason. I'm like, this shred's too hard. We have to play this.
No, it's
That whole song speaks to me. I commute to, not nearly as far as that, but I mean like 45 minutes every morning, and it's it's a good chance for me to wake up, everything like that. But I mean,
totally.
God, the biggest thing I worry about is like this exponential chance of you dying in a car accident.
No.
It's just
I know,
every
right?
day.
And to be like, well, he died doing what he loved, commuting.
Doing what he didn't really care for, but needed a job. So
he died doing the thing he politely tolerated for the sake of work.
Politely tolerate.
I'm fucking spoiled now. I can't say shit. I can't say shit.
Yeah.
My commute from upstairs to the basement.
Upstairs to the basement.
Oh, for real. Yeah. And that's been my jam for, well, that's what's funny is like people learning to work from home. Like I've basically done that for the last like 4 or 5 years, but I still remember the days of, I mean, I had another job too, where I had to go to a different city every day of the week. Yeah. And I was just constantly driving.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, there's something to be said for it to a certain degree, but it gets old pretty quick.
No, there were parts, like I did have a job where I commuted about 40 minutes a day. And there was something kind of nice about I could kind of mentally build up to it on my way in and then kind of decompress on my way home. And I liked that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Sure.
and there's something, it gets zen if you do it right? Like if you're not in like that type of traffic, you cannot possibly be in a zen state of mind when you're in.
Yeah.
But for me, it was also, a low grade torment that just led to major existential crises,
right,
on a weekly basis. And so that was me sort of channeling that into, a song that it doth chugle. It's a chuglin, like it's a rock song. And what's the least likely topic like for a chuglin rock song to be about? How about commuting?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's fun. And I mean, I started noticing one of the biggest things that bothered me was the just the sort of Matrix-esque simulation of the fact that I would see the same cars.
See the same car over and over again to the same
every
like,
day,
I swear I saw that
right next to you, and it's the same guy. And it's like, I'm in a medium-sized city, but it's like still, it's like, there's the same guy. He probably does the same thing. He probably pees at the same time in the morning that I do. He probably showers the same time I do. And there he is again.
Right. And he's probably thinking, there's that guy again.
Yep, there he is again. That fucking silver truck. God damn it. He's driving too slow because he's too tired.
Yeah, I mean, that's very real, right? Like that's something where God, I have those thoughts all the time. Yeah, I'm just like, this is not a life that has value. If this is something that you have to do this much, like it's like, why are we doing this exactly? And, there's a multitude of reasons, and some of them are good and some of them maybe aren't, and whatever. But like, I don't know, like it's something I like. I didn't approach writing a song about it flippantly, if that makes sense. Like it was something like that. That's again, it came from living in the Bay Area and just seeing so many other people doing the commute at the same time, where it's like, God, like it's crazy, like how much energy, literal energy, but how much energy is wasted every day with people just going just so they can like be at an office doing a thing,
right?
Combobulating those
resources.
Which is nuts. I mean, like, it's crazy if you stop and think about it. It's not sustainable in any way, and that's one thing that during the COVID times when everyone quaintly learned how to work from home, it's sort of like, you come to realize that, a lot of in-person meetings could have been an email or it could have been a phone call or whatever. Oh yeah. Okay. The whole thing's built on a hollow farce of trying to keep all this stuff going.
I mean, I've talked about the throwback of this, and it's still something that's fascinating to me, is just the idea of the office building in the city that everybody commutes to the suburb. At what point in time does that giant monstrosity become obsolete? That it's like, why
we may be forced into addressing that soon,
Right.
Like,
I'm fully expecting to see just office buildings up for sale all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, I hope they can convert them to housing, if anything.
Do something.
Good luck.
There's some, I mean, Christ, instead of just tearing them down and making a Hardee's, let's turn those places into apartments or for places, for people to live.
Do you guys ever pay attention to like how they have like skateboard culture? There's a whole thing about going into abandoned malls, like malls that have been disused and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to see if there was some kind of creative reclamation in that way towards office, but I don't know what that would be.
Right. Yeah.
I was having a weird thought, kind of almost related to that the other day, just thinking, you know what? We're getting so far away from malls that at some point they're going to come back. Like somebody's going to be like, hey,
retro.
I'm going to put together this, like, it's going to be like an outdoor shopping center, but it's inside.
Inside, man.
Whoa.
Somebody's going to be like, you mean a mall? No. It's not like that at all. It's not like that at all. It's totally different.
Yeah.
But it's a mall.
Yeah. It's
Stop
funny
saying that.
It's funny how history swings that way. I had like 2 or 3 friends. They're younger friends, but they were talking about there's a documentary out. I think it's on Netflix about this multi-level marketing company that sold leggings. God, again, they're like, wow, this is amazing. Look at how they fucked all these people and took all their money. And, and just being an older cat, I'm like, yeah, that's a pyramid scam. We've known about that for a long time.
Yeah. Welcome to the party.
Yeah. It's like, have we failed our children not telling them to like not do this? And they're like, wow, I've never heard of such a thing. I'm like, really?
Well, why not? Yeah.
Well, I think people have an outsized idea of how history is communicated, because there's all kinds of things that people, well, of course, everybody knows that. I'm like, well, how would they know that? Because again, we're in a situation now where there is record keeping, but the problem isn't the record keeping. The problem is the ability to retain information and the ability to know to seek that information out, because there's so much information now than there ever used to be, that the idea of there being like forgotten history has less to do with the fact that the events were not important, but it's just that they're not relevant in the zeitgeist at that moment.
Right.
Yeah.
Or, there's also just that new element that's coming in. I don't know if it's necessarily new, but of just people, no, fuck that. I don't trust the source.
Right.
Oh, well, and that's a whole different level of hell, right? The whole trusted source thing of like, well, where did this information come from? Then I will determine if that is, something that is real or something that is meant to fool me.
Or do I like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Does this information come from a source that shares my values?
Right.
That was coming from a mile away, but the problem is like a bunch of people just like, well, no, people aren't going to fall for that. Really?
Yeah.
You really think people aren't going to? You're giving people that much credit, huh? Okay.
Yeah. Well, it's happening right now. We're learning.
Humans? Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's all there in like in older media. Like, look at Network, right? One of my favorite movies of all time. Like, it accurately showed the monetization of opiniontainment and cable news taking a turn towards being profitable, and meaning that like, well, eventually it's like it's going to be there to make cartoon caricatures of things that were real, because that's something that people would enjoy watching, and it's all for the pursuit of the dollar. It has nothing to do with like the news. It has nothing to do with news like of any kind, or even catharsis. It's literally just like what gets people I mean, like, the fact that they went from like, the daily Trump down, right, to like just never mention him at all.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they know it's going to get people all riled up. So like one way or the other that, that dude loves being mentioned. What's it, positive or negative? Right.
No, it doesn't matter to
the fact
him.
that absolutely. So the fact that they deplatformed him, right, that's a different conversation. But the fact that happened, it means that like, well, they had to find new content, right? They have to find a new villain of the day. Now the villain of the day is like Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema.
Right. Oh my God, those two are driving me crazy.
And it's annoying, but like there's also news to report. You could also report on some fucking news, like you could do that as well.
Sure.
But,
I mean, that fucking,
yeah.
I mean, and the same thing with Biden too is just the fact that it's been kind of a boring presidency,
right?
But at least, I mean, goddamn, I'm thankful for the
What's
status
not
quo.
going to be boring after the last one, though?
Yeah, I think everyone was craving a little boredom as far as that goes. Right?
Yes,
but like,
exactly. It's relieving that it's like, I mean, as we've had guests in the past, like, oh Jesus, I don't want to look at the news. I don't want to see what has he done now. When Trump was president, but it's like, still, it's like not salacious enough, and it's like we still have a president who's doing things.
Yeah, it's just back to like, oh, occasionally it's goofy, or just like, oh, that's just regular ineptitude or corruption, rather than like, the ineptitude and corruption we had before.
Oh no! And I mean, if you're constantly under the spotlight, I mean, no news is good news in my opinion.
Here's some good news. I just read today, like DirecTV, AT&T, they're like dumping the what is it, OANN, super right wing, Trump loving network.
Oh, yeah. They're
okay.
DirecTV's taking them off of the roster. Although they still have Newsmax and they still have Fox News and they still have the other Fox News. So it's like, whatever. And like, the Young Turks isn't on there. Like you've got the station that has a Democracy Now! It looks like it comes from a public access station in someone's basement. Free.
That's what I always say about religious television channels. Is like, why can't Jesus afford HD?
Exactly. It's like, is this show being beamed in from 2002? Because it sure as hell looks like
it. He's the alpha and the omega, the beginning and the end, and he can't get HD filming.
I mean, I mean that's good. Like that's like the worst representation of cable news possible, right? Like, and it's just, but it's only gonna unless there's big societal changes, introduction of like critical thinking somehow into the culture, like you're still gonna be an inevitable slide towards that. I mean, once you have people that like, well, that's not my news. Those aren't my facts. Well, it's a fucking fact. Facts don't care about how you
Until
feel
we
about
can
them.
get back to that, we got to get back to like fairness doctrine and something. Even that's
But
not
there's
quite.
there's no way people that are making money on it are going to allow for that. You know, that's what it comes down to. I think we might have had. Did we have this? I feel like we had this discussion.
I
before.
think we probably did, or
You
something
probably
similar.
have.
It was we were
But-
really fired up coming up into the election time.
Yeah, well, I mean, and rightly so, right? I mean, it's
No?
because it sucks to be in this kind of situation where you just see things like being balkanized to the point of just not even feeling like there's any common ground between the people you share oxygen with.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
I
That's
mean,
crazy.
you can't. January 6th, holy fuck.
yeah.
I mean, what a huge example of that.
Yeah, and the fact that that was an event that it was that exact type of event was written out in the founding documents of this country, literally
Yeah.
verbatim of like, here's what to do in these cases. And
Right.
the solutions were both prescriptive and fierce, which is to say usually involving people being hanged.
Right.
But like the language for that gradually got changed. It gradually got changed.
Mhm.
There was, the Capitol protests instead of like Capitol riots. You know,
Right.
from insurrection to
Right.
riots to protests to like, oh, is this a disagreement? You know, it was like, no, the Confederate flag flew in the United
Right.
States Capitol for the first time ever in our history.
Right.
Yeah, it just blows my mind, like the walking back of things that, like, no, we saw it. We saw it.
Yeah, well, it's an extension of the gaslighting, right? It's sort of like you're like, no, that didn't happen. Like we literally saw it happening, but no, you didn't.
No,
see
I
that.
fucking saw Z Nation with Trump flags.
right, exactly, yeah. And it's just nuts that culturally we've allowed it to be that way, and one of the reasons why is because because there's just still idea of there being a commonality of purpose where there's no commonality of purpose. You have like the Democrats that want to quote unquote go to return to normalcy, which is impossible. We'll just let's be explicitly clear about that. And they want to believe that everybody's bipartisan acting in good faith. No, there has to be an agreed upon set of facts. There isn't even an agreed upon set of anything.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem is like if one side was like, I want you gone, I want you dead, I want you no longer.
And they have made it abundantly clear that is the case.
What if we just maimed everybody? You know, like that's what the Democrats are doing. I'm like, no, don't talk about. No, they're not. They still want you dead. Like offering to maim everyone doesn't help. What if we just cut off one leg? You know, like, and that's their idea of like, well, we did a great job. It's bipartisan.
Right.
Yeah. No.
And we're ruled by these 80-year-olds too. That's the thing that like all of the congressional leadership, every one of them is like over 80 years old, and they come from literally a different generation politically, that they not only don't understand the challenges of today, they don't want to understand it.
Exactly. Exhausted.
And they're more concerned with about being in the room of where the decisions and important things happen, and not losing access to that power than they are about actually pushing any kind of policy or doing any meaningful change. Everyone's just scared of being on the outside, scared of like losing their special privileges, being invited to the right parties. You know, it's as simple as that.
Right. And then you've got the mansion in Cinnamon. It's the opposite. Right, where that's where they draw their powers, being right on the outside. Everybody wants me. Everybody wants my attention. I can go either way.
Yeah, they get everybody in the country knows their name, even if it's because they have a dartboard that has their face on it, right? And are able to just rake in the money from all the various interest groups that, you know, are like, hey, make sure nothing happens.
Yep.
I wonder how much that ties into things like oral history that we don't exchange with each other. I shared a memory, I think in social media, that I had about my own kids, where it's like, I'm really afraid that I dropped the ball on like not telling them fairy tales and like, you know, children's songs and things like that. Cause when my kids were little, I was like, here, listen to this. This is by the Beastie Boys, you know?
Right.
And, but it was like, you know, they don't know, like, you know, Georgie Porgy or they don't know, like, so many of these other things, and like people are going to look at them like they're crazy when they mention something like,
like Grimm's fairy tales or
a
something.
Grimm fairy tale.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, sorry. I was, too busy, let me listen to ministry records and
right. Yeah. Well, and we talked about that. So, one of the developments of just lately, me just sitting around waiting to be able to tour again and get all these records out and stuff is that I'm on this movie show now, which is great. Like last 6 months or so, I've been co-hosting.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Give us some background on that.
Oh yeah. So it's a show called Movie Night Extravaganza. The guy who put it together, Forrest, he's basically been producer for a bunch of different talk shows. Like Michael Brooks is on the Majority Report and stuff like that. Ben Burgess, et cetera, et cetera. And it started off being like there were these sort of one-off specials that my friend Jason has a great show called This Is Revolution. That's really good and really kind of come into his own and it's been important to people. But he would include me on like, hey, we're going to talk about politics in music. Okay, cool. Or we're going to talk about like, hey, we're going to like talk about this or that or the other. And I'd be like, great. Let me know. I'm there. And so I met all these guys. I think it was on like we were talking about the Oscars. And then Forrest was like, I really have always wanted to do a movie show. I'm like, oh, that's awesome. You should do that. Like, that's great. So he made this movie show and I kind of came out as a guest. It worked out well. So I kept kind of coming back on and it was like a featured guest. And then, well, do you just want to be a co-host? I'm like, sure. Yeah. Like,
right on.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like this is fun. It's a fun show. Like it hits differently than a lot of other movie podcasts. Like it's more sort of irreverent.
Yeah.
And kind of, moves quickly. And, it's a movie show that I literally listened to before I was on it. So I was like, okay, cool.
Cool.
So that's been great. And that's been growing like crazy. This month is all 80s fantasy movies. So we just did Labyrinth.
Nice.
We did Dark Crystal and Princess Bride and things along those lines.
Yes.
And we had like a sci-fi month and we had like, horror movie month and so on and so on. And, it's good. It's basically me spending time in a way that is just not just staring at the walls. Right. So that's good. I'm watching movies anyway. So.
Yeah. Well, I love film anyway. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another good podcast. Check out again. I mentioned our friend Mike Schulte, the Pork Tornadoes, has a show called The Confused Breakfast, which is also a movie podcast where basically people have this gestalt in their mind of what a movie was like, and then these guys go back and rewatch it frame by frame and. It's funny how they just break down. It's like there's so much of the Mandela effect of what you thought it was versus
something
like
different
versus
wow,
what it actually was.
Yeah, this is like a big piece of shit. Remember that scene? What was going? It's really funny to listen to. But shout out to Mike Schulte. Check out The Confused Breakfast as well.
Yeah, so that's what's funny with Movie Night Extravaganza is like, we'll go back and like do something like They Live or something. And there's the idea of what people remember as They Live and there's what it actually is. And it's really interesting, like taking that in a modern context. And especially because like, not to put too fine a point on it, I'm kind of coming at it from a different place than those guys. Cause I came up from punk rock and like I toured to bands, like I got a different take. It's I think it's interesting. It's an interesting show, and it's been growing. And it's weird to be like, oh, Protonic Reversal is way more popular than that show, because I've never been in a position where I could say that like that is the case. But it's working collaboratively, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm hoping at some point we can get out on tour again, which means I'm not gonna be doing 2 of those a week too.
Right.
There's so many podcasts people can do.
Yeah. We're talking about doing a spin-off. We did an episode. We just thought it'd be funny. A while back to bring on Dr. N from another podcast called Undetermined.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
She does like a mystery podcast, and we had a lot of fun doing it, and started talking like, why don't we just do just kind of make it a semi-regular thing,
a mashup
called Undetermineds, plural.
Yeah, the Undetermined.
The title in my head is like Undetermined Weird Shit.
Weird shit.
Cool.
I gotta like it.
Yeah, why not? I mean, like playing with the form can be like lots of fun, right? Like, why wouldn't you?
And it's totally different format. I mean,
Like we did this. I can't remember when we did it, if we did it last time or not. But on Protonic, there was a special that was it was myself and Tony Ash from Secret Friends and Brian Walsby, who's in the great Shiny Beast. He played in Polvo for a while, but he's like mostly known as a cartoonist these days. But we just talked about AC/DC and like literally went through the entire AC/DC discography and gave our thoughts on it.
That'd be fun.
That's great.
yeah.
And like we, a lot of times we agreed, sometimes we didn't, but like. It was fun because it was like, oh, well, we all really like AC/DC. Like, why don't we just do an episode of this? And it hit a different sort of audience that normally would the normal Protonic audience. And there's nothing wrong with playing with the form.
No, I have weird ideas all the time. Yeah, what if we did this? And I'm always hitting John with like some weird idea.
Yeah,
of what we could try.
And I'm always like, no. No, I'm just kidding.
That sounds awful.
Latest one I was thinking about was like, what if you just like did a show that was nothing but referrals, right? Like every guest is referred by the last guest.
I kind of like that.
Right? You don't really know where you're going to go. It's just somebody says, oh, this is who, because we get that all the time. And I'm sure you do too. Oh, you should talk to this person.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
What if that was like all you did?
Yeah. My latest idea, I saw this podcast coming out that looks really good. That's, it's all interviews with different bands that relate to them knowing something about a true crime incident. So it's like combining rock and roll and true crime. God, I can't think of the name of it. The dudes from Bleed the Victim shared it with me, and I was like, that's a really good idea. But I also thought, since we're into like the paranormal and weird shit, why not do kind of the same thing? I mean, I guess there's been that show. It's like, it was like the haunted, series on like Rockstar. Talking about like Rhea McEntire's mansion. And
Yeah,
shit
we
like
could
that.
do something. Well, yeah, I'd love to do something.
But I mean, it'd
like
be interesting, I think, to have just like a show that was just like anybody who had like a sort of paranormal or psychonormal encounter.
Or just bringing in like former guests or stuff, people we already kind of have. Like, you got any weird stories, Conan?
Yeah.
For
UFOs, Bigfoots.
Parapsychological. God, not
Parapsychological, cryptid, fucking anything, lost time, psychic projection.
No, I feel like I should, but not really. I mean, if you want to talk about quantum entanglement, inflection points, and parallel universe theory, I could do that for a while. Yeah,
didn't they recently quantumly entangle a water bear?
I mean, I think there's all kinds of, there's whole disciplines of science and pseudoscience that are devoted to that kind of thing.
Sure.
I have theories that a lot of things that are considered, paranormal or parapsychological are just things that
we can't explain yet.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the fact that they used to think there was this element called phlogiston that created fire. Like there was an element that they gave it a name. And that's before they understand the principles of combustion, right? They were just working with it with the way that they have. And I think that, there's certainly a mindset that the people over history have been like, well, we understand all this. It's like, well, but do you? Because you're wrong.
Right.
Not admitting you're wrong is like not what I consider like the scientific method,
right,
for that kind of thing. But I mean, I don't know if anyone would be looking at, I've to interested parties, I've certainly explained my ideas with timeline inflection points and parallel universes and.
Okay. Well, we're interested parties. So.
Well, I mean, I think that the idea of like, if you look at it, like how has it been depicted within movies and stuff, like movies like Sliding Doors and things like that. There's certain decision points, things that happen. Gwyneth Paltrow gets on the subway car. She doesn't get in the subway car. Her life turns out differently because of X, Y, and Z. Now, there's one school of thought that says every person at every time making any kind of decision is constantly at an inflection point, and that creates a new parallel universe. I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
I think that people run into them somewhat regularly, and some have them more often than not, and that if you have an awareness of energy around you, or are able to, in whatever fashion, discern or feel it, probably more accurately, that you can know when there's a certain inflection point in the way that it will just feel important.
Mm-hmm.
It feels important. And even a way like this should not feel important. then what that is that's an inflection point for something you don't understand yet, and that actually would cause a new string that would cause a
tangent, right?
Yeah, a new universe that you will never be able to immediately discern or visit, but that is what is actually happening.
Okay.
And that there is the ability that humans have, and humans and probably some animals, that to be able to feel that, but not understand what it is.
Right.
Other than we determine it as our conscious minds is this is important. But in some cases, some people, just like, what did Bill Hicks say? Like, spray paint to the third eye or something. Like some people have like chosen to ignore that or like dull their senses to it or whatever, where they're never going to notice or feel it, which doesn't mean it's not happening.
Right.
And some people would be like more attuned to it and maybe can determine that as various things. But I think with that and certain degrees of folks, the non-soothsaying aspects of things like future determinism and things along those lines, that might be potentially someone that has a window into those types of inflection points without necessarily being able to adequately understand what it is that they're seeing.
Right.
So that's my theory on it. It's based on, because I'm a big fan of parallel universes, time travel, things like that in fiction, and
Sure.
whatnot. And I believe that there are such things as ley lines and stuff along those lines. Because again, it's just because we can't immediately. I mean, nobody understood what radiation was until Madame Curie.
Sure.
I mean, it's like
Sure.
it makes sense there would be other forms of energy around that we just don't understand.
Yeah, I was just listening to Aaron Mankey's podcast. I like lore. I don't know if you've listened. I mean, it's a pretty popular thing, but I listen to him. He's a great researcher on things that just kind of cross from the paranormal into actual history. He has a great podcast, but one of the things he said last week in an episode I listened to was he's interested to see, and I think Matt has mentioned this too before, what are those things 200 or 300 years from now that people are going to say, I can't believe they believed that shit.
Right.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Or, how did they not know about this, the X wave, this wave, that wave?
Yeah. Well, think about not just my flow, just an example, right? But think about the fact that at the beginning of the dawn of radiation, nobody even thought about the fact that maybe you'd want to wear some protective covering and shielding.
Right.
That might be a good idea to do that. Without understanding that lead would be a substance that would maybe be beneficial in that manner.
Oh, sure.
And I think that's, I don't know, like I don't go too far down the rabbit hole on some of that, because it's sort of like there's also, I'll praise for those that do like to chase that, but like for me, it's more, well, that's interesting. I'm always down to check that out. Like I think, when they talk about the Hadron Collider and stuff like that, it's sort of like it's great. I'm all into that. Like it's like, okay, the LHC, like that was a big week. Yeah, when it, I was like, that was a monumental moment in science. I mean, some people also talk about like, hey, what if that blasted up a parallel universe? And to which I would say that happens every day. Right. It almost assuredly did.
Yeah. Betty X talked to us about that. She's convinced. Betty's convinced that that's what happened when the Hadron Collider created the molecule. It just created a new timeline. She's got a very convincing argument for it too.
Sure, but also the theory I sort of subscribe to is that happens thousands of times a day. Too. Right. Sure. That would be like a more extreme version of it. I think people are used to the idea of it being fictionalized in the way that like, oh, now we're in the universe where everybody has mustaches and they're evil. Okay, great. Yeah.
No, I tell you, the most compelling thing to me right now is the fact that we've gone through the Trump era. Right, that even happened. Exactly. Right, like in most universes, that didn't happen. Right, and I'm kind of pissed off that I'm stuck in the one that it did.
Yeah, the reality show guy, really?
Well, in accordance with some theorists, like an infinite number of universes where that did not happen. So,
I mean, there's certain things like. Do you remember that in December, I think, where they talked about like there was a bunch of neutrinos that were inside the particle accelerator that hadn't been there before, and like that was sort of like
yeah.
Like that stuff's interesting. But like I said, the like inflection point theory is basically says that this stuff's happening all the time. It's just that
it
may be something more mundane.
Have you ever seen the show Counterpart?
Oh yeah, with the
J.K. Simmons.
J.K. I was gonna say J. Jonah Jameson, which
Same
is also
guy.
true. Also true, which is that's a character.
Yeah, same
he
thing.
plays. Yeah, I was watching that, and it kind of seemed like I kind of stopped watching it. I don't really know why. I never really finished that off, but I like the idea of it a lot. I mean, that was
Yeah, it was
I'm not
pretty
familiar with
interesting.
it.
No, it's worth checking out. Unfortunately, they canceled it.
yeah.
It was doing well, but they canceled it because they just wanted to change demographics, apparently.
But I think that it's so if you subscribe to parallel universe theory, then everybody wants to think about in terms of what if the Nazis won World War II, right?
Yeah.
Man, High Castle kind of thing. And sure, that would be there. But then there also would be what if I freaking ran over a nail and got a flat tire instead?
Right.
Okay, I'd be late for work, and
Mhm.
and it wouldn't necessarily always be a spectacular outcome. It's just that those are the kind of things that make for better narrative fiction. But the idea is you got to understand, it wouldn't just be billions; it would be billions upon billions upon billions, googleplexes of
Scenarios.
of possibilities and scenarios every single day. But fact of the matter is that I don't believe there would be every decision any person ever made. I think that there is there's a certain probability towards inflection points. Inflection points could be someone has billions of them in their lifetime. Some people may only have one, right? Maybe it's just happenstance too. Maybe it's just one quark goes one way, and then next thing you know, the atomic bomb is discovered by the Japanese first or something. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm also kind of I believe in that philosophy. Just the fact that maybe the flap of a butterfly wing or one blade of grass laying another way doesn't necessarily. It's not going to make a big fucking difference. I don't think.
Well, yeah, exactly. So the butterfly flaps the wing, and all right, big fucking deal. Nobody cares, and nothing's different at all. It just flapped its wing, and it didn't matter.
Right. How many times I caught those things in the grill of my car?
Right, exactly. And so that's going to be the scenario more often than not with this particular theory, meaning that 99.999
right
X amount of 9% of the time that's going to be what it is. But every once in a while things will happen.
Yeah.
And that you wouldn't be able necessarily to discern your particular inflection point from say delaying the shooter of John F. Kennedy from getting up to the book depository, or deciding whether I have a ham sandwich or a chicken sandwich that day.
Right.
You wouldn't actually know what it is unless you had some foresight or ability to see an outcome of some kind, or just to be able to feel that out.
That's an interesting question. Can you think of a moment in your life where something that you did, that didn't seem like it was maybe that big of a deal at the time, ended up changing everything?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Multiple ones. And this is what kind of led me to start sort of researching that thing. I do my own research.
What?
Researching this idea, because it was sort of oh yeah. And you learn later that when I did that, or when this decision was made by me or an outside party or whatever, that led to this, which led to that. It'd be interesting what would happen if that had not have happened. Would that have turned out the same? We don't know. And it could be something as simple as hey, I didn't get into the car at this time and everyone was in a terrible car accident.
Yeah. And that's why I don't think time travel is going to happen within my lifetime, because I know there's 2 or 3 that if I had access to a time machine, I'd be don't do that. Knock it off.
But this is one that comes back to me. And it's so innocuous, and it doesn't seem like anything, but I swear to God, it set me on a path.
Yeah.
In high school, my school paper had a contest. They were just asking people to write in about why they believed in Santa Claus.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, fuck it. That sounds like fun. So I wrote this story about why I believed in Santa Claus, and I swear to God, just doing that, and it wasn't even that big of a deal. My class was like, oh, that's good. And I was like, cool. And I felt good. And they're like, you should take creative writing. So, okay, I'll take creative writing. I took creative writing, and creative writing in that class, I really liked it. And we had a publication, and we had to go get sponsors, to put it out. Because I did that, we hit up the radio stations in town, met the guy who hired me for my first radio job because I talked to him and he was like, wow, you seem really interested. And he gave me a shot.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And it just like this whole ball started rolling because I wrote this story about Santa Claus. And it's like, I can keep going with this story. Like it's influenced.
No, but there's ripple effects. Yeah. No, I get it. I 100% get it. So I'm going to tell you just from, my personal standpoint that like there was a benefit show for a band, the drummer for a band called Brickbat from Wilmington, North Carolina. And some of those guys played in, there was a Hank 4, was a band, San Francisco band. They had some ties to it. I don't remember exactly what it was, but they did like a benefit show, and David Yao, who's friends with those guys,
yes,
and Mac McNeely played like some Brickbat songs, like David Yao sang them, and so on and so on. Anyway, but it was a benefit show, and they had like a bidding. Here's the charity gifts, right, that you can bid on, right. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll throw in for that. Okay, cool. And so, two of the things that you could do is either like you could do luxury hotel room. That was one of them, right? Like luxury hotel room at like this posh hotel. The other one was be a radio DJ for the week.
Oh,
for the local community station. So I was like, oh, that'd be interesting.
Yeah,
I'll throw in for that one. But and so that eventually led to me starting up with the embryonic version of Protonic Reversal, which then led to me becoming, pretty good at, doing that kind of thing. And like 8 years later, still doing it, and it being a huge part of my life.
So you won. Which
I've like had these conversations with people. I did win that one. Yeah.
What were the odds? Do you remember?
Well, it was something like, 40 people threw in. I mean, it was like a small benefit.
Yeah.
But like if I had not have won that, like would I have thought to do the show? And if I had done the show been in the same way, would there be people that like whose bands reconciled because they like heard like an episode of someone on the show and then they got in touch, blah blah blah, this and that, like what would the repercussions of that would have been? And that was literally just like a charity raffle.
No, I totally get it.
Like this is like central casting for like a sci-fi movie of there's Conan wins this prize, Conan does not win this prize, and I don't know.
That's the same thing. Yeah, I don't know that we'd be talking here if I hadn't started on that path.
Yeah. I was just thinking about Adam Casto today in that regard.
I would not know you guys if not for Adam. If anyone's still paying attention, that's
he was just, and I mean, I think he was just following somebody that we followed, that we were fans of, and we saw his like, avatar or whatever of the Galactic Turkey artwork,
right?
And Matt saw it and was like, let's, he went and just kind of followed and clicked, following down the rabbit hole. And it's like, oh, this guy's got some good music. He's like, hey, you want to invite this guy on? And I listened to like a couple of tracks from Nerd Table. And I was like, yes. And he's like, well, do you want to like vet him or check him out? I was like, no. It's like, this guy's legit.
Well, yeah, and then that led to, Adam led to me being on the show, and then,
right.
I connected you with some other folks and vice versa,
sure.
And, like as communities work, as it's supposed to work.
I believe it, and I appreciate that so much.
Yeah, he's a conduit of cool. I still stay in touch with him all the time. He's a good pal.
Well, I mean, that's how community should work. There should be an exchange like that.
Yeah.
And I'm honestly kind of surprised. Oh, so that's been another thing that's been kind of cool with doing the Movie Night Extravaganza show, is that there is a real community of people kind of helping and like uplifting each other and like, listening to each other's shows and giving them props and that's awesome, because it's sort of, I don't know, for the longest time, I just pretty much felt like I was like off of my raft and in the middle of the ocean, practically.
Adrift.
Like it's a lonely format. It's you're talking into these microphones, and that's great, and you're having great conversations. And is anyone listening? Well, maybe they will, and maybe it'll be next week, maybe it'll be a year and a half from now. But that's now a moment frozen in time that's like archived and still there for anyone to find at any moment in time.
No, that's one of my favorite things,
and it's just kind of crazy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I mean, that's time travel in and of itself. I'll have someone like literally repeat back something that I said on a show, usually something pretty funny. I'm like, oh, that's hilarious. I'm like, you said it, asshole. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
I guess that does kind of sound like me.
No, I think about stuff like that. I think about like when I was learning about radio and just how radio waves just travel forever. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's cool as shit that my voice is like floating out in the universe forever.
Somewhere out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's huge, right? I mean, like, and that's starting her up, but like that's why I chose the shellac song End of Radio to be the end thing for Protonic. Because you know that idea of like, some of the lines like, can you really call it broadcasting if there's nobody listening? But the idea of there being like transmissions that are picked up like later on, like years down the line, because they're just broadcast out into space, and you're still hearing this moment like captured in time. And there's something kind of romantic about that and kind of cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my favorite things I did, I think, in the first year of our podcast, somebody did this art project where it was somewhere in the Netherlands in like the middle of fucking nowhere. They put a speaker out that just like played to like puffins and marmots and shit. No people around for hundreds of miles. And the idea was you could upload like 10 minutes of content and it would play out in the middle of this just Arctic field to nobody. And I uploaded like The Legend of Dandy McCandy, like one of our first like conversations on the show. And I was like, yeah, that's out there.
You're baffling some flightless birds right now.
Yeah, lemmings.
Congratulations, yeah.
Lemmings diving off a cliff are going, oh, that's kind of funny. Or they're not.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt bad that they were torturing the wildlife.
The wildlife's like, we did not sign up for this.
It was hilarious to me. So
sure.
And they're like, yeah, you are number like, 118 in the queue or whatever. Your broadcast will go out on like November 17th or whatever. And I was like, yeah, it got played up there. And then,
I don't know. There's something to be said too for just knowing that was the only thing that ever was happening in that moment in time.
Right.
That particular ice flow. That particular conversation and those particular batch of wildlife. And that's going back to the conversation about the commuter and like having these like repetitious experiences and feeling like you're like stuck in the matrix or something along those lines. I used to take comfort in the fact that like I'm the only person on this elliptical machine right now who is listening to the birthday party. Yeah. Who was, like whatever, like some very specific set of criteria that like I would think about just to give myself some acknowledgement of there being like unique patterns of behavior in the world. And
yeah.
Right. You are somebody.
I think we all do that.
I hope so. Some people don't.
No.
I don't know. Maybe some people just don't think about it at all. I mean, some people just seem to be happy and that seems to work out well for them,
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
I think that my nature is almost constant movement and, moving forward.
Right.
And it's not to denigrate what it came before, but I mean, certainly anything creative, I'm always kind of pushing towards the next thing and trying to work on that and make it cool and interesting. And that's, I'm so excited about all the dangerous nomenclature stuff and all the rest of the stuff that's coming out this year that it's like, wow,
yeah,
this is some of the best work this band has done, and that's, of course, I think that every artist thinks that,
Right. But no one has done exactly what you're doing.
Right. Well, exactly.
And it's fucking outstanding. I just got to say,
thank you.
I'm not placating. It's sincere. And then that's
for sure.
That's been an important part of this show. I think from the get go is sincerity. It's, I like that in any person that I talk to. I don't talk to people who just aren't. And, I really dig this new shit. It's
that's
great.
Awesome. There's the Princess Bride that we covered on Movie Night Extravaganza. There's a great scene where Carrie Owens and Mandy Patinkin are sword fighting. He's like, oh, you're a very good sword fighter. And he says, thank you. I've worked very hard to become so. And I was like, oh, wow. That's a good way to answer that because it doesn't minimize it.
Right.
And it's an acknowledgement of it. Like, so I was like, that's really, and like, that hit me totally differently this time. So I'm like, huh. Cause I'm always sort of like you don't want to downplay it. Like I bust my ass.
It's a weird balance.
Right?
Yeah.
But like, also you don't want to be like, well, I know I work very hard.
Yeah.
That's a thank you. I've worked very hard to become so.
Right. You
Pretty
don't want to
good.
be like, I'm the shit. You don't want to be a dick
Yeah.
about it. But at the same time, you know what? It's okay to say, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many episodes have you guys done? Like, it's
We're getting in the
some
hundreds
ungodly
now.
amount.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so
Yeah,
it's not like
hundreds,
you're
yeah.
novices at this. You know how to do a good show. You know how to guide a conversation. You know how to not guide a conversation to get something cool. It's a skill. So when somebody would say like, "Hey, you guys do a good podcast,"
Yeah.
then you can say,
Thank you.
"Thank you. I
Yeah.
worked very hard to
Yeah.
become so."
Yeah.
Right.
I just thought that was such a cool thing because I think that there's this weird culture that we've built up that you're not allowed to acknowledge that, or it's somehow debasing to do so, or you're coming off like arrogant or whatever along those lines. But then by the same token, because it drives profit, if you are able to share the content of others that's already in the zeitgeist, then that is tacitly rewarded. And I just find that such a bizarre dichotomy.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have people on that you find interesting,
Right.
You have on like big people. You have on artists that you like a lot that people should know about. I do the same thing, right? For Protonic, and I always appreciate when me, who's not like I'm not a nobody, but I'm not a household name either. I'm somewhere like way in between. That when I get the opportunity to be on a show, I was like, yeah, great, cool, let's do it. Let's do something cool. And I always want to engage with good faith in that way because that's how things get built and that's how you make connections. And being supportive and having a communitarian mindset, it's not hard, but it does require effort.
Yeah.
And requires effort because we're being programmed every single day to not do that because that doesn't monetize things, or to do so in a specific way, right? A specific way that rewards the particular service that you're utilizing.
Right.
And like checks those boxes and does those kinds of things, which isn't to say that you can't do it on like a thing like Facebook or Twitter or whatever along those lines. But just realize that, if you're not paying for a product, you're the product.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's important too. In talking about it, as we were I don't want to bring it down, but talking about death and grief, I can remember somebody, and it was actually a minister, and I'm not a really religious person, but a minister told me after my father's death that, when people are saying like, I'm so sorry for your loss. And so, and this and that, it's like, it's very easy to just kind of shrug those things off. You don't know those people that well, but he told me something that was important. He said, don't deny those people their blessing to you.
Right.
And that's the same way with taking a compliment.
Yeah.
And I know it weirds people out to compliment them on their work sometimes because you just, sometimes you don't feel worthy. It makes you feel weird. Whatever to say. Oh, thank you for praising me. Don't deny people their blessing to you. And it's for them in a lot of ways. Just to say.
No. And that's something I have to work on all the time. If someone gives me a compliment, you did this. My first instinct is to tell, here's all the shit that was behind it.
Oh no, could have been better. Yeah, here's the reasons why it was terrible. Well, and that's so you that's perfect because the idea of when I started touring, like I had to learn how my feelings of the show didn't actually matter.
Yeah,
like it mattered in terms of what it meant to me, but it didn't matter for someone that saw the show and had a great experience. It was actually selfish to me to try to talk them out of that. Well, we blew it on the opening of the new song, and like so and so was out of tune for this, and blah 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 blah. No, don't do that.
Yeah, they don't want to hear that shit anyway.
Well, exactly, and like you're this someone that like they want to tell you, hey, I had a good time tonight.
I had a good time.
Like the thing you say is you grit your teeth if you fucking have to, and you say thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you were like,
exactly.
I was at open war with my bandmates, or like just something was off the entire time. I had to take a massive dump, like whatever. It doesn't matter. None of that matters at all. Just say thank you and grit your teeth. And to a certain degree, I feel like some of that stuff should be like in a guidebook for being creative.
It should, yeah.
Because I feel like people that really ought to know how to do that don't. And also, I think that there's this idea that it somehow diminishes your own art to be a fan of the art of others. And that's absurd.
No, that's stupid.
Absolutely. Yeah. But many of us as artists are self-deprecating, and they say, oh, that keeps you on your toes. And I don't necessarily know that that's true.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the world will drag you down plenty on your own. You don't need to do it yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Don't be your own enemy.
Yeah. I mean, it's which isn't to say that like go through life like with this myopic gaze of feeling like everything you do is fantastic. That's the other extreme of it, right? But like,
yeah,
I kind of have the philosophy, and I tell this to a lot of people. This is when I'm working, I'll tell this to people, and you'd be surprised how many times they pause, right, and think, "Wow, yeah, no, that makes sense." And I'll just say, you know what? I'm a big believer that a lot of the time people are beating themselves up when they should be lifting themselves up.
yeah, I mean, and there's something to be said for being that in the world. When you see a band that, that just not be relegated to bands. Obviously, that's the world I live in. But that you like, they're just doing something special that you love. Like, tell people, and tell them.
Sure.
You never know, like, what's going on in people's lives, like outside of like creative world. That like maybe they're having a shitty day.
Yeah.
Like let's be clear. Like during like COVID times, a lot of us are having shitty days all the time, right? So. Some random affirmation is not the worst thing in the world. Like to be able to be like, hey,
exactly.
Hey, jammed out the record day, still slaps.
Yes.
like great. That's awesome. Like when I get messages like that, like I'm like, fuck
sure.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. There needs to be a lot more of that going on social media, I think, too, especially when we're in this isolated state. It's just, share love, let people know, share their shit, tell them, hey, love it, dig it. If you don't. But
yeah, I mean, and also, so that's the other thing, right? It's not a necessity to have an opinion on everything.
No,
right.
and that's what, and like I've noticed the new thing that Facebook is doing is being like, so and so has a new story up. What's your reaction? My reaction is, I don't have a fucking reaction to it. Fuck you.
Right.
Like,
right.
Don't tell me what to do. How dare you?
Yeah, I'm making a sandwich. That's my reaction. It's fucking lunchtime.
My reaction is dismissed. I don't care.
Right.
Like my reaction is, can you show me the things I want to see sequentially? No. Okay. Fuck off.
No. right. Yeah.
But I mean, it's not relegated just to the one format though. I mean, that's just like, I think that there's money to be made in isolating people and making them feel like the things they're wanting.
Oh yeah.
You can sell them shit when they're in that state. So
yeah.
You make it seem fun, like you make it seem like you're supporting the individual without actually supporting the needs of the individual. And there you go. Recipe for profit.
Yep. And then they receive.
You don't want to support the needs of the individual. Then you can't sell them shit.
Yeah, exactly. And then
hey, we got widgets to sell here.
Yep.
Then they get that widget, and then a week later, they're like, "Oh, I need a new widget."
Yeah, exactly.
That's how it works.
Widget envy. Yeah.
Another great band name.
Yeah. I also, and I say this to someone that most of the people I know that I'm close with are creative people, and some of them are amazing. Like and some of them are good, and some of them are like only okay. But I think this idea that's being pushed now, again, by people selling shit normally, that everyone is creative. No, everyone is not creative.
No.
I can assure you that is not the case. And like that is openly dangerous for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is the fact that it's already like a glut of information and infotainment anyway that people have a hard time parsing through because human minds are not meant to take information in that way. That to have like people just like, it shouldn't be, oh God, that must sound like such an asshole. It shouldn't be that easy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it should hurt a little.
No,
it should.
Yeah. It should.
Like, because that means you really want it. That means it's actually important to you. We're like, you know what? I don't give a fuck about this. Like, great, then don't do it. Like, I mean, there's things that, like I have an interest in. I'm not gonna like try to sculpt or something. I think it's cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was just gonna say sculpture.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to do it. It's great. I acknowledge it when people make great visual art.
Yeah,
I'm a little above mediocre. You know.
Yeah.
I'll do it if I have to.
Yeah.
You know, but could I have applied myself on it? Sure, I guess. But like,
right.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you have to too. And I feel like there's this idea that people constantly have to develop every skill they have and be creative. Putting application to somebody to be creative when they're not a creative individual, that's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
That's as terrible as like taking someone who is creative and trying to make them be a factotum.
Right. No, I agree. And man, there are times because I love creativity and I love people that are artistically talented.
Mhm.
And there are things that I'm better at and things that I'm not that great at. And it fucking pisses me off that some of the things that I'm just not great at. Like, I love music. You know, I love music. I am not a musician. I wish I were.
Right.
Right. And it hurts me. It's like hurts me to the core that I'm not.
Yeah. Because you want it. You're like, hey, there's all these reasons why I would be good at it. There's this level of interest I have in it, but it's either, it shouldn't be a failing that you're not. But also, and sorry to interrupt, but like I go back to that. Is it Ira Glass from This American Life? That's that Ira.
Oh, I love that guy.
He has this great. I don't know. I think I saw it as a meme or something. Oh, I found it. I just read it for you guys if you want. Stop me if this sounds familiar, but. Nobody tells this to people who are beginners, and I really wish somebody had told this to me. All of us who do creative work, we get into it because we have good taste. But it's like there's this gap. For the first couple years you're making stuff, what you're making isn't so good. It's not that great. It's trying to be good, it has ambition to be good, but it's not that good. But your taste, the thing that got you into the game, is still killer. And your taste is good enough that you can tell that what you're making is kind of a disappointment to you. A lot of people never get past that phase and they quit. Everybody I know who does interesting creative work, they went through years where they had really good taste and they could tell what they were making wasn't as good as they wanted it to be. They knew it fell short. Everybody goes through that. And if you're just starting out or if you're still in this phase, you got to know it's normal. And the most important thing you can do is do a lot of work. Do a huge volume of work. Put yourself on a deadline so that every week or every month, you know you're going to finish one story. It's only by going through volume work that you're going to catch up and close that gap. And the work you're making will be as good as your ambitions. It took longer to figure out how to do this than anyone I've ever met. Oh, I took longer. Sorry. It takes a while. It's going to take you a while. It's normal to take a while. You have to fight your way through that.
Yep.
So there you go.
Wow.
I think that is like one of the best pieces of advice I've ever seen or heard. Or
That's some science right there. Wisdom.
I mean, like, there's this expectation, especially now, that if you don't are immediately a success, that you're a failure. And it's like, well, failure is part of life.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you have to, like, get okay with not even being bad, but, like, not being good enough.
Right.
To be able to be great.
Yeah, everything's a grind. Even working in a sawmill is a grind.
Exactly.
To get good at anything.
But I've never heard it quite articulated that way. And I think that's something that... I think there's this push towards making people feel like just that if they don't succeed immediately, that it's over. I was like, well, no, you got to put in the work.
Right. Or the myth that you can do anything you want to. And I don't know if I'm great with...
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Hell no, you can't.
No.
God,
you know,
especially when we were kids and they're like, you can be president of the United States of America. It's like, no, we fucking can't.
Yeah. All you gotta do is get the right interest groups on your side, and you're all set.
Right. You're right. You have a shit ton of money and everything else. I mean, come on.
Right.
You know.
So that's the problem, is that there's this middle ground between you want to be able to give people hope and something to aspire to,
right?
But you don't want, like, you want to have empathy, but not ruinous empathy.
Right.
Right. There's a place in the middle. What you got to realize is that our entire culture is set up in such a way that those needs are not supported or acknowledged, even. So that everyone's kind of constantly flailing.
Yeah.
And you know, my response to a lot of that is I withdraw significantly from social media, like with some degree of alarming regularity, because to me it's I feel like it sucks creativity away.
Yeah.
So if I need to, like, work on something, like, you're not going to see me, like, you know, posting which battle bot are you quiz or something. Like,
yeah.
You know, like, it's just not going to be a thing, because that's not. But it's not like I'm trying to be aloof or whatever. I'm doing it for my own sanity.
Right.
Really.
Because then you don't have to think about, God, which battle bot am I?
Yeah, God, which battle? Yeah,
God,
so many battle bots I could be.
Yeah. Now I have to think about all the Care Bears and figure out which one.
Exactly.
Oh, shit.
Well, I'm kind of a grumpy, but also kind of... But then, like, for me, then it's like, well, okay, now since I'm not doing those things, I'm going to sit down and actually get to work. And then I'll get to work. And once I start doing it, it's great. But I gotta start doing it first. And that's even for someone like myself. And I've said this in other interviews and other shows I've been on. It's like people look at the output of what I do and like, wow, you're relentless. Like you're constantly doing stuff. You're constantly putting things out, making things, and they're not wrong. But what I say is that like, yeah, but there's 9 times out of the 10 that I'm not able to do that. Like I'm just like emotionally not ready, or I don't have the time, or it's just not there. And you never see that piece of it.
Right.
So what you can determine from that is that I put more effort towards that than I guess a lot of people do. But effort is effort. Effort is not results. And I'm better about turning effort into results now than I used to be. But there's sometimes, sometimes it's not there.
Yeah.
You're like, you're digging, you're panning for gold, and you're like, nope, just mud today.
Right. And it's the difference between forcing it and allowing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like, oh, it was mostly mud, but there was this like teeny tiny little ingot.
Couple of flakes.
Okay, then there's something there. So let's save that, and then tomorrow we'll try again. And sometimes you're like, woo, gold for everybody, like right. It's easy. and the important thing is to look at it long game. That it's like long distance running versus sprinting. That if you look at it that way, that you're going to have peaks and valleys for it.
Yeah. Being
creative becomes easier because you get to be like, well, I've got a stitch in my side. I feel like I'm going to vomit right now, but I know I'm going to like rally later on when I see the finish line's coming.
Yeah.
And if you can think of that and look at that with that long picture in your mind, it makes it easier to get over the rough patches or when things aren't happening.
It does.
That's a lot of analogies at once.
No, man. Yeah, it's great. No,
I think it's a good time for those things too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a really easy time to be discouraged, and I fight it every day.
Yeah, I've seen people that, to me, would have no reason to be discouraged about anything. Like I'm like, wow, you've already like made this incredible body of work, and you're a titan in the minds of so many people. But they're just like, what's the point? And it's like, well, that's a complicated question, my friend.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And part of that is finding deeper meaning within yourself. Like in the same way that, as a musician, sometimes you like go see like a really killer show, like a show from bands. It's like, wow, they're just firing on all cylinders. The song selection was great. The show was good. I'd always, especially when I was younger, be like, I want to go play immediately. Like, can we go practice right now? Like, oh man, like I want, like you were fired up to do it. Right.
Right.
And I wonder for those kinds of experiences with everybody being like, quarantined and isolated, not able to do like live events, or if you are, there's this specter hanging over you of constant danger that it's easier for everything to kind of seem more like prison food. It's all thin gruel.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer for that because I'm a victim of that.
Yeah, you don't know people are receiving it. You don't get the feedback, and
it's like a passive medium, right? Like I'm sure, and for the people that like doing the hey y'all playing our songs on Facebook Live, cool, that's awesome, good for you. That's not for
heart symbol, heart symbol, heart symbol, heart symbol.
Yeah, well, exactly, yeah. Smash that like button.
What does that mean?
Yeah, but it's there's something kind of clinical and cold and alienating about it that again couldn't for a lot of these corporations couldn't have happened at a better time. Because they're already like profiting off of that. I mean, already profiting off of people's misery.
Right.
It's just like, oh, great. People are more miserable. That's more money in the bank account.
Yeah. The carpetbaggers are always going to find a way to profit off of anything, more peace, disease, anything.
Human ingenuity, right?
Right.
Sell them the rope that to hang themselves with, right?
Well, somebody's going to do it.
Yep. Rope's really popular these days.
Yeah. Well, it's like, again, just to reference St. Bill Hicks, like, the anti-marketing dollar, that's a good dollar. Oh, now he's doing the trap dollar. Oh, that's a very good. Our market research says that many people feel that way.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, here's the deal. I think we have a lot of self-awareness about a lot of things right now, but I don't feel that the emotional needs are at the same level of development culturally right now. In fact, they're going to save Arrested Development.
Oh, we definitely are. Well, half of us are anyway.
Yeah.
Right, exactly, and that's the thing. If people are having their empathy weaponized back at them, like, well, guess what the result's going to be? They're going to put up shields, right? Of course they are.
Right.
Like, they're going to be like, hey, maybe these idiots should die. We'll all be better off. I've literally said as much.
Oh, sure. The fatalism is reality. Yeah, it's definitely happening. I think some of these people are just so depressed they're ready to go, especially in some of these really isolated rural communities where nothing else is going on.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, the good Lord takes me. It's like, yeah, because all you have is like Sonic, cheeseburgers, and DirecTV, and you really don't care. We've got other things to try for.
Well, but it's so, I don't want to be too much of a bummer about this, but I think that's why you have to go extra hard for loving and supporting the things that give life meaning.
Yeah.
They give you the ability to see beyond the mediocre miseries of the world. And you should cultivate that.
Yes.
And you should support that. And nobody is profiting off of that. So it's not going to naturally come from any of the avenues of engagement that we have. So people need to think about it more actively.
Yeah.
And that can manifest in I'm not telling you like how to live your life or anything, but I think if you start with that, I think that life becomes incrementally less shittier.
Right.
In general.
This was just kind of clicking with me that kind of doing the podcast and doing these sorts of things, really ultimately what it comes down to is it gives me more to appreciate. And this is the time when I need to have more to appreciate, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It's appreciation now more than ever. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. I talk to people and I'm like, oh, I appreciate this person. I appreciate what they're doing. I'm excited about this.
Well, I mean, yeah, I was excited to talk to you guys about this. I was like, oh yeah, it's at the time of this recording, like it's not even out yet, just like the one single, but it's like, great. Can't wait to talk. I'm glad to have something to talk about, first of all.
Yeah.
And can't wait to talk to you guys about it because I know the way you guys engage with it, like that it would be thoughtful and interesting and probably go to a bunch of like weird areas that I never thought about. We talked about parallel universe theory and inflection points for a while. Didn't see that coming, but that's fine.
I still had one more weird thing, actually. I had a dream with you in it the other night.
Well, yeah, don't stop now. Oh, really?
Well, I think
I see.
I think it's because I knew you were coming up more than likely.
Okay.
But like I had this dream and it was a really weird dream. We were in your house, which I'm sure isn't the same house. It was like a 1-floor bungalow.
That's closer to what our place was in Oakland. Our place in Milwaukee.
Well, there you go. That's probably what it was. So did you also like have your living room a stage in your living room? Because
no. Although I think if we did, people would be like, yeah, that's in character.
Yeah.
But like, no.
There was a stage in the living room, but there was like a recliner on the stage, but you could tell you could move it off pretty easily and be ready to rock out.
Move it off when the band's
But
right, exactly.
There was a tornado coming.
Yeah.
Of course.
And we were preparing for the tornado and trying to get safe and cracking the windows in the house. And you got like really mad at me because I wasn't cracking the windows the right way. And the dream, it was really, and I was like, I'm trying, man. I don't know. Like I did crack, because you're supposed to crack your windows in a tornado. So
they don't shatter.
Right. And I wasn't, I was either cracking it too much or not enough.
How dare you?
And I was feeling really, like I'm an idiot. And then you're like, well, no, you got to use the Schmiegel. And it was like a little fine tuning thing.
Oh yeah. Everyone knows that. Yeah.
Just like dial in how very precise you need your window to be open.
This is your first time on this planet? Come on. Use the Schmiegel.
It was like one of those crank windows, but there was an extra little dial on there that I didn't know about.
I thought it was funny. Just a few weeks ago when we had Trevor Dunn on, and like Dmitry Mavra posted on Facebook. He said, I had a dream last night about me and Miles Davis, and a hedgehog was chewing my feet. And I don't know why this happened. And I said, that's interesting. So we were just talking about you and Dungeon Weed on the podcast last night. And we also mentioned Miles Davis, and we mentioned the Fabulous Hedgehogs.
Oh, wow. So it's some interdimensional crossed wire connection.
Yeah. He was like, oh yeah, absolutely. It's breaking down. It's like the Matrix is breaking down. The simulation is over. It's
That
breaking
goddamn
down.
time. Great.
Yeah.
Stuff's about to make sense again.
Yeah.
Look, it's easy to get down on everything because everything is very bleak right now.
Mhm.
But that's when it's most important to shine a light on the things that make you want to live and the things that make you want to share and be like, wow, this is awesome. Check this out. And I think you do a great job with Undetermined. Just shining a light on stuff you like.
Yeah, thank you.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's, it's never going to be as popular as here's why this thing you like is terrible. Like, what? No, I'm going to listen to that and be angry.
Right.
About it.
Oh, fuck that.
Right.
But that's cheap.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
and it's
I agree.
ultimately that's a modus operandi that I think we might see fade a little bit. Hopefully,
I hope so.
as time goes on, because it feels like the younger generation is like not down with that, like at all.
Yeah, they're much more positive, I think, and yeah, a lot of the feuds and the ego and shit, I think is dying down a little bit, and people are trying to lift each other up. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, like having empathy for your fellow people is great as long as it's not ruinous empathy. That's the important thing.
Mm.
It's important to know the difference. That
Yeah,
knowing the Giving Tree, right? You guys remember the Giving
Right.
Tree?
Yeah.
Michelle
Giving,
Silverstein. Yeah, absolutely.
I love the
Yeah.
Giving Tree.
Yeah, and I'm stoked to count you guys as like friends and allies in this crazy whack world of creativity and whatnot. And
Well, it is definitely mutually felt.
We love you to pieces, man. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, likewise. At some point we'll have live shows and we can actually hang out in person, and that would be fucking cool.
Yeah, God, it's gonna be great.
That'll be a nice thing when that happens.
Holy shit. I can't. Ugh.
Yeah. Anything else you want to drop about the record and where to find it and everything else?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point. So, Dangerous Nomenclature, Learning Curve Records. There'll be a pre-sale link pretty soon. I think I got so burned by the Grasshopper Lies Heavy vinyl that we might wait to put a pre-order up of the vinyl for a while.
Sure.
Okay.
Because he put that record up and it sold really well, and they just hit like the shit into the stick all around multiple times over, and it's been kind of harrowing for him, much in the same way the Household Gods record was, where it was just like one goddamn thing after another. So I think it'll be something where like you can get the digital and you can the CDs will be done pretty quick, but like the vinyl's probably going to be a little while.
Yeah,
but yeah, there should be at least 2, probably 3 releases in 2022 from Conan Neutron: The Secret Friends. And then there's a new record that's like 30% done after that.
Wow.
So nothing in 2021 at all. But making up for lost time in 2022. So
yeah.
And I will say this, it's not that it all sounds the same, but if you guys are digging the vibe of Commuter and Dangerous Nomenclature, like it's all this stuff is pretty cool. Like and there's everyone I've known that it has been like along for the ride for the band has been like, wow, this is this is good, this is interesting, and I'm like, cool, I'm glad you feel that way, because of course I feel that way.
No.
Yeah, I fucking made it. Of course I like it.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in contrast, I think you needed something like that after, Dark Passenger, where we talked about that being, it's a great record, not an everyday record.
Yeah.
Right? This is much more of an everyday.
No, it's for
Sure.
Like, and returning to that after doing that was like great. I mean, and like being, unfortunately, kind of being forced into like taking some time to do it was not great, but like it gives perspective for sure.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, not that some of the content or lyrics or ideas behind it isn't heavy. I mean, it's heavy, but it's just, I love that mix of like, heavy subject matter mixed with like just rock fun.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, because that's kind of the modus operandi, right? I mean,
yeah,
like competitive grief,
right?
It's like a hilarious concept, but it's also, it's like the idea of that's a thing.
It's a real thing.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
It's a real thing. People like want to performatively show how affected they are, and it's just that's just like it's a wild thing. And like I said, Misplaced Optimism of the Doom is sort of like a life ethos more than anything else. But like,
yeah.
You know, like I think that's I like writing about stuff like that. Like it would be disingenuous for me to be like baby.
Yeah.
You know,
yes.
like that's it's not me.
Right.
It just isn't. Like, and that's fine because there's plenty of bands do that great.
Yeah, and I don't dislike those songs. I mean, some of them they're great.
No, I some of those songs are fantastic, right? But it's sort of
right.
It's not what I write about, which means that there's always going to be something. It's something of kind of a niche thing. It's going to be always going to be for freaks, nerds, and weirdos as much as you know. It's like, oh, you could totally play this on like classic rock radio. I'm like, yeah, except for you couldn't. But,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
And I like the idea, and I see where you're going with it, and I appreciate the praise. But yeah, I wish I could be.
Yeah.
And for me, it's not even that it's like throwback music or classic rock. Like I'm very much trying to make music of the now. It's informed from those things, you know.
No, it's new. Yeah.
And I think that's only allowed when you're a known commodity.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. and I think that's hard to do. I think it's hard to do since there's nothing new under the sun. You know, in a lot of ways with rock, that it doesn't sound like a throwback, but it does sound something like fresh in the world of just rock and roll.
Yeah.
And we love you for that, man.
Well, thank you. And you guys always have gotten it, you know, quotation marks, trademark, copyright registered, like, and that's not lost on me because there's definitely, again, so some days the fruits are bountiful and some days the trees are bare. So it's always nice to have.
Right on. All right. You guys want to wrap? This is good?
Yeah, I think
Great.
2 hours is probably pretty good.
It's probably
Well,
enough.
work with
Yeah.
that.
God damn it. Some editing to do this week.
Well, I mean, hey, we went over a year and a half without the last talk.
We needed
right?
to make up. We did.
Yeah,
we did.
exactly.
We did.
And I don't want it to be quite so long next time.
And hopefully we won't lose it like we did that one time. Remember the one episode we did that ended up not even the lost episode? Yeah.
We got it out eventually, but like both of us had forgotten.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to get back to me and you thought I was going to get back to you or something. I can't remember exactly what the deal was.
I don't remember.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. Anyway, time's a flat circle, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure, dudes.
Well, thank you, man.
Absolutely. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in to Undetermined the Podcast. Special guest, Conan Neutron.
Yes.
Have a great week, everyone.
Thank you again, Conan. We love you, man.
Yeah. Happy to do it anytime, anywhere.